Chief calls for restraint after Iran's attacks on Israel. Police probe killers targeting of women in Sydney Mall attack. Good afternoon and Salam Malaysia Madani. You're watching World Today. I'm Shuhaida Arifin. United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has called for maximum restraint after Iran's attack on Israel, as he reminded members of the world body that acts of reprisal involving the use of force are barred under international law. Addressing the Security Council during a meeting over Iran's weekend attack on Israel, Guterres repeated his condemnation of Iran's strike on Israel and the Israeli attack on the Iranian consulate in Damascus.
Madam President, the Middle East is on the brink. The people of the region are confronting a real danger of a devastating, full-scale conflict. Now is the time to defuse and de-escalate. Now is the time for maximum restraint.
Late on Saturday, Iran launched a direct attack on its longtime arch foe, Israel, for the first time, firing a wave of more than 300 missiles and drones. Nearly all of them were intercepted by Israel and others, including the United States, Jordan and Britain. Iran said its attack came in response to a deadly 1st April airstrike on Tehran's consulate building in the Syrian capital Damascus that was widely blamed on Israel.
Faced with such circumstances, the Islamic Republic of Iran had no choice but to exercise its inherent right to self-defense under international law.
Sunday's Security Council session on the simmering crisis came at Israel's request, with its ambassador Gilad Erdan urging the Council to take action and condemned Iran for their terror. The European Commission and G7 leaders, meanwhile, condemned Iran's retaliatory attack on Israel, demanding Iran cease attacks completely and called for an end to the crisis in Gaza. The bloc's commitment towards Israel's security remains unshakable, and further discussions would take place on additional sanctions against Iran.
Iran's actions risk provoking an uncontrollable regional escalation, and this has to be avoided. We will continue to work to stabilize the situation. We call on Iran and its proxies to cease completely the attacks. All parties should exercise maximum restraint.
U.S. President Joe Biden also reaffirmed ironclad U.S. support for Israel, but also appeared to guide its ally away from a military response against their common adversary, Iran. According to a White House official, Biden warned Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu the U.S. will not take part in a counteroffensive against Iran if Israel decides to retaliate. In Tehran, newspaper headlines and a billboard in the capital highlighted the country's mass drone and missile strikes on Israel overnight. The Sunday editions of Tehran's newspapers carried out headlines on the previous night's strikes, while a billboard on a busy road showed an image of an Israeli flag torn apart by a descending drone and read, "The next slap will be stronger." One man said he supported the strikes, saying the attacks showed Israel that Iran is strong and will retaliate if necessary.
خیلی خوب بود و ایران هم همینقدر که به اونا نشون داد که ما قدرتمند بودیم و هستیم خیلی بسیار عالی بود و نظر من اینه که تا همینقدر اینا دیگه فهمیدن که با کی طرف هستن. بسیار عالیه. ما آدمای صلح دوستی هستیم ولی بخوان ذره ای از خاک این ایران رو هدف قرار بدن ما 100% متقابل به مثل میکنیم.
Iran had warned Israel and the United States of a much larger response if there's any retaliation for its overnight strike, which caused only modest damage in Israel. Now, displaced Palestinians have attempted to go back to the areas they are from in northern Gaza on Sunday after more than 6 months of ongoing Israeli offensive. Crowds of people walked by the sea coast on Wadi Gaza in Nusayrat camp area, which separates the north from the south, in the hope of being allowed to cross back. Some carried their belongings, others used bikes or donkey carts to move.
والله فرحانين وكأنه اليوم العيد والله كأنه اليوم العيد يا بني والله تعبنا بدنا نروح نشوف بيوتنا أولادنا وأهالينا يلا تضلكم بخير خلينا نلحق كود نمرق إن شاء الله بقولوا بدهم يمرقوا البنات والأولاد الصغار والنساء وإن شاء الله بنروح على ديارنا سالمين يا رب.
There was no clear directive from the Israeli army regarding the possibility of a return for displaced families. Most of the 2.3 million population of Gaza is now displaced and much of the densely populated enclave demolished. In Gaza City, Palestinians queued to buy bread from a bakery which reopened after being shut down for several months due to the lack of flour and energy. People waited in lines and crowds in front of the Kamel Ajur bakery, one of the first bakeries to resume work in the northern Gaza Strip.
المخابز شغله كويسه هذه بتريح الناس وبتريح الجميع شغله كويسه منيحه تصير تاكل خبز بعدين احنا عانينا معاناه شديده لما نشتري كيلو طحين 90 شيكل و100 شيكل هذا شغله جنون والناس مش معها مصاري الناس مفلسه فيش عمل فيش شغل الوضع صعب اصعب من الصعب مرينا بامور صعبه الله بيعلم فيها.
Most Israeli troops have been pulled out of the Palestinian enclave in preparation for an assault on its southernmost city, Rafah, where more than 1 million Palestinians are sheltering, but fighting has continued in various areas. Australian police today said they are investigating why a 40-year-old man with mental illness appeared to target women as he roamed a Sydney shopping mall with a large knife, killing 6 people and injuring a dozen more. Videos shared on social media showed unshaven itinerant Joel Cauchi pursuing mostly female victims as he rampaged through the vast, crowded Westfield shopping complex in Bondi Junction on Saturday afternoon. In the attack, 5 of the 6 people killed and a majority of the 12 injured were women. The only man who was killed by Joel Cauchi during the attack was a mall security guard.
Well, the videos speak for themselves, don't they? And that's certainly a line of inquiry for us. It's obvious to me, it's obvious to detectives that seems to be an area of interest that the offender had focused on women and avoided the men.
Cauchi was killed by Inspector Amy Scott, who confronted him solo while he was on the rampage. Police have said Cauchi had mental health issues in the past and there was no indication ideology was a motive. Meanwhile, the Australian national flag is flying at half-mast across the country, including at the Parliament House and Sydney's Harbour Bridge, in honour of the victims. Sydney Opera House's sails will be lit with a black ribbon this evening. At the Westfield Bondi Junction shopping mall, families embraced as they lay flowers. One man stood silently and wiped away tears before moving on. The attack has caused sorrow, outrage and shock in Sydney, where residents are relatively unaccustomed to violent crime. India's ruling party pledged to introduce a new common civil code for the country, calling it a crucial step for gender equality, a week before a general election in the world's most populous nation. Nearly 1 billion Indians will vote to elect a new government in 6-week-long parliamentary polls starting on 19th April, the largest democratic exercise in the world. Many analysts see Prime Minister Narendra Modi's re-election under his Hindu nationalist Bharatiya Janata Party (BJP) banners as a foregone conclusion. The BJP launched its manifesto Sunday, wading into a polarizing debate by reaffirming its stand on a Uniform Civil Code (UCC), which would standardize laws for personal matters such as marriage, divorce, and inheritance across faiths and religious communities.
वन इलेक्शन के विचार को भी साकार करने का संकल्प लेकर के आगे बढ़ेंगे। बीजेपी यूनिफॉर्म सिविल कोड को भी देश हित में उतना ही आवश्यक समझती है।
India's 1.4 billion people are subject to a common criminal law, but rules on personal matters such as marriage, divorce, and inheritance vary based on the customary traditions of different communities and faiths. North Korean leader Kim Jongun and China's top legislator hailed a new chapter of Beijing-Pyongyang relations in one of the most high-level meetings between the allies in years. Beijing's third highest-ranking official, Zhao Leiji, made a goodwill visit to the nuclear-armed North this week as the two countries mark 75 years of diplomatic ties. China is North Korea's most important economic benefactor and diplomatic ally, obstructing U.S.-led efforts at the UN Security Council alongside Russia to impose stricter sanctions on Kim's government in response to its increased weapon tests. Zhao told Kim that China is willing to strengthen development linkage and deepen bilateral cooperation with North Korea. It also willing to promote bilateral, practical, and mutual beneficial cooperation to achieve new results, to continue to give strong mutual support, and to safeguard the common interest of both sides. Kim, in turn, told Zhao the North was keen to deepen the traditional friendship and write a new chapter in North Korea-China relationships. Still come 19 dead, 2 missing after Indonesia landslides. Stay tuned. Twenty suspected Haitian migrants were found dead in a boat in northern Brazil, their bodies in an advanced state of decomposition and showing signs of dehydration and hunger. Fishermen alerted the authorities after finding the boat near the town of Bragança, which sits on Brazil's northern coast of the state of Pará. Federal police said further investigation is needed to confirm the cause of death and the victims' identities. Forensics experts will also have to confirm the exact number of victims. The federal police, together with the fire brigade and the navy, were seen on Sunday maneuvering the boat off the coast of Bragança. Emergency workers are towing the boat to a village called Vila Tamatautua, where investigators plan to remove the bodies. The Federal Prosecutor's Office said in a statement it had opened both criminal and civil investigations on the case. At least 19 people have been killed in landslides on the Indonesian island of Sulawesi, with rescue efforts ongoing for those reported missing. According to the country's disaster mitigation agency, the landslides triggered by high-intensity rains affected 2 villages in the region of Tanah Toraja in South Sulawesi, destroying 4 homes. Local media has reported that at least 2 people are missing. Located in the center of Sulawesi Island, the mountainous region of Tanah Toraja is about 300 kilometers from the provincial capital, Makassar. Floods and landslides killed at least 26 people on Indonesia's Sumatra Island last month, with torrential rains destroying hundreds of homes and displacing thousands. Indonesia's rainy season began in January, with the meteorological agency forecasting a first quarter peak, particularly on the island of Java and Sumatra. In the southern Russian city of Orenburg, the river Ural has burst its bank, inundating thousands of homes after heavy rain and melting ice swelled rivers across the region and in neighboring Kazakhstan. The Emergency Situations Ministry said Sunday that nearly 4,000 houses and blocks of flats in the city had been flooded. In some places, the water reached the top of the ground floors, and some had not managed to retrieve any possessions before the water rose. Locals sloshed through water, bringing out pets and children in their arms. The water level was so high on the city's central promenade area on the embankment that only the top of street lamps with a security camera rose above the swirling brown water. Water also lapped around a column marking the dividing point between the continents of Europe and Asia, which is a local landmark. In northern Kazakhstan, flooding has submerged swathes of the city of Petropavlovsk, where rescuers have carried out preventative evacuations the day before. Residents of an affected district blame insufficient funding by the authorities into flood prevention inspections and infrastructure which could have avoided the disaster. There's widespread flooding in the Russian Urals region and neighboring Kazakhstan, caused by melting ice swelling rivers exacerbated by heavy rainfall. In Kazakhstan, more than 107,000 people have been evacuated from their homes, while in Russia, almost 40,000 homes have been flooded. A fire raged out of control in the mountains of Tarbena in Spain's Alicante province, leading authorities to evacuate 180 people from their homes. The wildfire comes as Spain has experienced unseasonal high temperature for April since Friday, with many places marking 10 Celsius higher than normal for the season. The fire was aided by the heat, which increased at midday, and also an excess of vegetation which had served as a tinderbox. Cuban animal rights protector held the traditional pilgrimage of the Caribbean country's Day of the Dog, demanding stricter legislation to combat animal cruelty. Accompanied by their pets, the activists walked through Havana's Colon Cemetery with flowers and posters gathered at the tomb of the American philanthropist Janet Ryder, an animal rights activist who died on April 1931, to pay tribute to her work. On Sunday, participants demanded legal reforms to address the alarming cases of animal mistreatment prevalent across the island nation and enacted tougher measures to safeguard the welfare of the animals. Next in sports, Tsitsipas secures a third Monte Carlo title. Stay with us. National men's doubles pair Go Tifei Nur Izzuddin Rumsani gave their all but still fell 17-21, 21-15, 10-21 to world number 3 Liang Wei Kang Wang Chang in the final at the Badminton Asia Championships BAC 2024 in Ningbo yesterday. The unseeded Tifei Nur Izzuddin, however, can hold their heads high for fighting gallantly for an hour and 4 minutes against the home pair. Tifei Nur Izzuddin began aggressively, but it was the Chinese pair who clinched the first game. Undeterred, the Malaysian pair found their rhythm, which saw them dispatch the world champions Kang Min-hyung So Seung-jae of South Korea in the first round and compatriots Aaron Cheso Woo Yik in the semi-finals to take the second game and force a decider. Now, in the rubber game, 2022 German Open champion Tifei Nur Izzuddin's game took a nosedive as the Chinese pair turned on the style to romp home to victory in front of a raucous home crowd. Malaysia last won the men's doubles title in the BAC when Chong Tan Fook Lee Wan Wah defeated teammates Koo Ken Kiat Tan Boon Hyung 21-14, 11-21, 21-12 in the 2007 edition in Johor Bahru. Stefanos Tsitsipas hailed his third Monte Carlo Masters triumph as the Holy Trinity, claiming his golden week in the Principality has restored faith in his game. The Greek cruised to a 6-1, 6-4 defeat of Casper Ruud on Sunday to add to title triumphs on the Riviera in 2021 and 2022. Tsitsipas arrived in Monte Carlo ranked at 12th in the world, his worst standing since January 2019. Tsitsipas earned a double break for 4-1 and claimed the set as Ruud double faulted after 36 minutes. In the second set, Tsitsipas got out of trouble in a 13-minute game, saving 3 break points at 3-3 after leading 40-love. He claimed the title 3 games later on a first match point, a forehand winner down the line. He is the 5th man to win 3 or more Monte Carlo titles, joining Rafael Nadal 11 and Bjorn Borg, Thomas Muster and Ilie Natase, who won 3 apiece. Ruud, twice a French Open runner-up, apologized to the capacity crowd for not being able to mount a consistent challenge to his Greek opponent. Moving on to football, Bayer Leverkusen lifted the Bundesliga title for the first time in their 120-year history with a 5-0 victory over Werder Bremen, breaking Bayern Munich's 11-year stranglehold on the German top flight. Michel's cross. However, Liverpool's final season under Klopp is unravelling. Klopp's men have now won just 3 of their last 8 games in all competitions and are showing clear signs of fatigue after already having played 51 games this season. Unless Liverpool produce a stunning fight back against Atlanta in midweek, Klopp will have just 2 more games at Anfield before his momentous reign comes to an end. Meanwhile, Arsenal's Premier League title hopes has suffered a massive blow as Aston Villa struck twice in the closing stages to boost their top 4 bid with a dramatic 2-0 win at the Emirates Stadium. Leon Bailey put the visitors ahead and Ollie Watkins doubled their lead as Villa boss Unai Emery enjoyed a second sweet win this season over the club that sacked him in 2019. Arsenal's first defeat in 12 league games leave them in second place, 2 points behind Manchester City, while third place Liverpool are behind Arsenal on goal difference. With just 6 games left, Champion City are closing in on an unprecedented 4th successive Premier League crown. Villa had moved up to 4th place without kicking a ball after Tottenham's thrashing at Newcastle on Saturday dropped them below Emery's man on goal difference. Now, in Moto GP, Aprilia's Maverick Vinales completed the perfect weekend at the Grand Prix of the Americas when the polyester and sprint winner claimed victory in Sunday's race despite dropping outside the top 10 on the opening lap after a poor start. Vinales became the first rider to win a Sunday race with 3 different manufacturers, having won with Suzuki and Yamaha in the past. Vinales had been untouchable all weekend, posting a record qualifying lap and winning Saturday's sprint. But the Spaniard's golden touch deserted him at lights out when he went wide into the first turn to leave Acosta out in front. Pedro Acosta remained in control to lead a lap of Moto GP for the first time in his only third race in the elite division. The race scripted turned on its head on lap 10 with Ducati's Marc Marquez first hitting the front and then exiting the stage. 8 laps left and Acosta was overtaken by Miracle Man Vinales, who was finally back in the position he had started the race. But with only 2 seconds covering the top 5, it was still too close to call. The speed Vinales and his Aprilia had shown all weekend emerged though in settling fashion as he pulled over a second clear of Acosta with 5 laps to go. He avoided any late mishaps to cross the line and create history. Acosta took second with Enea Bastianini completing the podium of the third race weekend of the season. Alright, so that ends our bulletin this afternoon. Wrapping up with a recap of our top story today. UN chief calls for restraint after Iran's attacks on Israel. Tune in to Malaysia tonight coming up at 8:30 p.m. on TV1 and saluran Berita RTM. And we leave you with an aerial shot of colourful hot air balloons floating in the sky of Wonosobo on the islands of Java as part of the local celebrations of Aidilfitri. From river to the sea, Palestine will be free. I'm Shuhaida Arifin. Stay tuned to TV2.